This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of Doc and Jock, featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski, fresh off a beautiful golf outing with the DOC. Had the best time in regards to getting outside, relaxing, getting away from work. Thank you kindly for smashing the golf ball with me and having a good time. And we still got a lot to talk about in the world of Detroit sports and the World Cup. But let's start out with the bad news. The USA got bounced from the World Cup. It's going to be a little bit tougher to stay in tune with the World Cup, but there's still a lot of great quarterfinal matchups. But all the big dogs are there: Spain, Argentina, France, England. So you realize, okay, it's another stark reminder in my mind. The USA is not in the realistic category of the big dogs. It's tier two. Soccer in the United States, football, whatever you want to call it, it's a tier two thing in terms of the world status. And it's okay. The idea is that if you believe truly that the United States was going to win the World Cup, yeah, you're not going to go through France, Spain, Argentina, England. Come on, I think you might have been a little bit of la-la land. But most importantly, what has everybody pissed off when 35 million people watch it is the United States looked like they didn't belong. They crashed out. They looked like they were scared. They looked like they were in a position where they were like, clearing the ball, don't know how to do that. Goalie catching the ball and kicking it, can't do that. Making epic blunders that nobody on the world stage would make, that's what they did. And so it was an epic flame out. And I just think that if you just would have lost a 3-2 tough fought game or lost in penalty kicks, it would have been fine. But when you start to see Christian Pulisic realizing that, okay, you know, there's Haaland, there's Harry Kane, there's Mo Salah in the world stage, and this is where a guy like our guy Kenny would come in and be like, ha ha, Doc, what are you talking about? America better than Germany. You don't have a world-class striker. You have good players, but on the world stage, you are the MLS of the tournament, and basically you benefited from the tournament expanding. You're like the 69th seed in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, you can put up a banner and say, hey, we showed up there. We might have won a playoff game, but you're not really world relevant, and you're not going to be. It's just more of the same. And listen, if you fell for that bull jive and you fell for the hype off of the internet, I'm sorry. Go find real people that will tell you, yeah, you're not world relevant. You're a guy, you kick him in the ankle and he's down and he's out and he's just going to fall apart. So I do think soccer is more popular, it's more relevant, but that's the good thing is that, you know what? The one good sign is this team got criticized. That means people care. They invested, and the United States getting their ass kicked 4-1 is not something anybody wanted to see. Because what was your reaction sitting there watching it? I know it was embarrassing. We were all hyped up for it. My daughter was like, damn. It just reminded me of clown soccer. And when your goalie, look, I agree. The biggest thing that has to happen is playing in the MLS should be a deterrent. Oh, you play in the MLS on your resume? Sorry, you can't make the team. You're like, wait a minute, I have 25 goals. You said you play in the MLS? These three letters? Sorry, you're not. That's a place where all the greats go to get their final check. That's not a league. So, and they have a playoff. They don't even run the league the way the others do it. So, sorry, you're not relevant on the world stage. And it got exposed by a team that got motivated off of a controversy.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things where this game just showed you where the U.S. is at. Like, there's been really and truly zero advancement in the last 10, 12 years. Like, U.S. soccer is still in the same exact spot. And look, this was a tournament that was expanded. It was bloated. You had teams that didn't belong in this tournament that were there. Bosnia-Herzegovina, you should not have been there. Like, you should not have been playing them in a knockout round. Like, there was no reason for them to be there. And when you look at the overall landscape of just how the U.S. fares compared to every other country, every other team, like, put this into context. Switzerland is better than you. Switzerland has made it further than you have ever made it. Like, just let that sink in just a little bit. Like, as good as you might think that you are, and as much as you might chant USA and we believe and all that crap, you're just not any good. Like when it comes to world-class soccer, you are just not any good. And here's the thing. This Belgium team wasn't all that great. This Belgium team isn't all that good. This Belgium team is going to get ran off the pitch by Spain. Like they're older, they're just not as athletic, and they embarrassed you. Out of all of these matches in the quarterfinals, this was the worst one to watch. Like it wasn't competitive at all. Now there were games that were absolute snoozers, but they were at least competitive. The score was close. There was a chance in the final 90 some minutes that somebody could score a goal and either equalize or draw even closer than what they already were. This game was done 12 minutes in. You had no shot to catch up. This game was over. And I think that is probably one of the most frustrating parts of all of this is you had zero juice going in. You looked like you were just kind of mailing it in. And when you go to see the talent and the depth on this team, it's just not there. Christian Pulisic is essentially your modern day Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan is trash. I used to always hate this. Everybody would sit there and trumpet Landon Donovan. I never understood it. I always called him Captain Penalty Kick because the only way he'd be able to score a goal was off of a penalty kick. That was it. He wasn't any good. He was an MLS heartthrob. That's what that guy was. Essentially, Christian Pulisic is the 2026 version of that. He's always banged up, always hurt, never comes up big in the big moments. And this is the guy that you built all of your commercial coverage around. This is the guy that you put out in front of everybody. This is the guy who is essentially supposed to be one of the captains of this team. He's the guy who is supposed to be the face of U.S. soccer. And he's not any good, especially when you compare him to the rest of the world. He's not any good. He's in nobody's class. And I think it's just a trickle-down effect. The U.S. doesn't have anybody in a world-class setting where they can compete. They just don't have the athletes. They don't have the players. When you're rolling out what feels like 84-year-old Tim Ream as your center back, I mean, it's obvious he's lost a step. If anything, he should be a rotational player that you're subbing in, but he finds a way to crack the starting lineup. So that tells you where you're at. You just don't have the depth. Me and my wife were sitting around the kitchen table, and she was like, "Who do you think wins this game?" And I was like, "Belgium." Like the U.S. hasn't beat Belgium, and since 1930, I think the U.S. is 0-6 against Belgium. Like, and it's like ass whippings, like not close, like ass whippings. Belgium just walks them, and I was like, Belgium will probably win this game. I was like, I think getting what's his nuts? Florian Balogun back in. I think I think that could have helped, right? When we were sitting there talking about it, I was like, he's arguably your best player. He's the first legitimate striker that you've ever had on a US soccer team. Like he is that. So like he's a guy that you can kind of build around, but like when you compare him to the rest of the world, is he on the same stage? Is he in the same atmosphere as a guy like Messi or even an aged out Ronaldo? Like, I don't think so, but he's good. He's a guy that you can build around. He's a piece that you have for the future. And with him getting inserted back in because Donald Trump got involved, which, if we're being honest, was just embarrassing. Just embarrassing. It just goes to highlight things that are so wrong with this, with where we're at, just in U.S. politics right now. And I just want to leave it there because I don't want to go too far down that road because I'm just going to get fired up and get upset. But when you look at what they have as far as depth, Belgium is better everywhere than you. They have more depth than you. They can sub guys in who would take just about everybody's starting job on the U.S. team. And that was essentially what I told her. I was like, they're just deeper. I don't think this is a very good team, but they're deeper. They've essentially got more bullets in the chamber. The U.S. essentially has Balogun, and they had Pulisic in like question mark because, again, he didn't show up when you needed him to. He didn't show up again in a big game. Oh, I got kicked in the ankle. Okay, cool. I'm going to go sit down on the sideline. Like, what are we doing? Like you're playing for your lives here. Like you're playing for a chance to make one U.S. history. Two, you're playing for a chance to legitimately make history and do something that is awesome, and you just can't find it in yourself to do it. And it's incredibly frustrating. Look, I think the U.S. a couple things that the U.S. has going for them. All right, I think they've got a hell of a coach, and I think he's done a really good job to try to exterminate some of that MLS mindset. There was a conversation that I heard in a report that he was a part of where it talked about how the MLS has essentially set U.S. soccer up to fail because it's not like the rest of the world. Like you said, they have a playoff. And like you don't even have to be very good to get into the playoff. There's no relegation. There's no consequences for not being good. And it doesn't necessarily impact your pay. There's 1,001 things that make international soccer so awesome, and MLS just kind of does the complete opposite. It's like the rest of the world uses the metric system, and the U.S. uses the imperial system. It's just what it is. Like they had to like form their own league, make it very much U.S. centric, and it has hurt the overall product when it goes to the world stage. And he said that he had to basically spend almost 2 years driving that mindset out of these players and getting them to a point where they could go and just try to compete at that world level. And that right there, that is damning. And when you look, I think us as fans, I think the U.S. population, I think we were very much invested in this because they came out and they played so well against Paraguay. They looked awesome. And then they played against a very feisty Australian team that was really looking to go out there and stake a claim and make their name by dumping on the U.S. And the U.S. was able to hold serve, and they were able to win that game. I think a red flag for me got brought up was when they ended up playing Turkey. And some of the guys that they had playing in that match against Turkey were their second line, was their subs. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how good this team actually is. And Turkey beat them. And it to me, that was embarrassing because it lets you know that this team, again, just there's not the depth, there's not the talent. You don't have the same pool to pick from for the players that you need to compete at this level. So then they go into their first elimination game, and it's whatever. Like we said, you're playing against a team that really shouldn't be there. In any other tournament, you wouldn't be in this spot playing a team like this. This team would have been bounced a long time ago. Instead, you get by it and everybody wants to celebrate. And if we're honest, you kind of had to hold on at the end to get the win. Like it wasn't true class. It wasn't like you went out there and you put a clinic on. You were able to survive it. And yes, you won 2-0, but like it was what it was. And then you get into a matchup against a team that is obvious heads and shoulders above you. And like I said, this match was basically over from the time the whistle blew. After 12 minutes of watching this game, the U.S. essentially was waving a white flag, and Belgium was just running a train on you. And they didn't even offer you any Vaseline. They took what they wanted, they did what they wanted, and in the end, they just discarded you. It was embarrassing to watch. It was frustrating to watch, and it's a constant reminder that you just aren't good enough to get to this spot. And then to have the political aspect worked back into it, where you really were a feel good story. Like you really were. And when soccer starts taking shots at itself because of what happens, because of what FIFA does, because political powers get involved, all of a sudden a beautiful game becomes very, very ugly. And this to me was just an absolute embarrassment. I hope that they can take this right here, take this loss, take everything that was good in this tournament and really build and help catapult soccer forward in the U.S. But I just don't think we ever get there. Like you and I have been watching this stuff forever and a day. Like I was captivated by soccer. Like I got the bug in 1994. I remember going to a bar with my mom and her then boyfriend to watch these games. and just sit there with my little red, white, and blue jersey on and holding a soccer ball. Like legitimately, I went to Kmart and I bought a $12 soccer ball that had the Irish flag on it. And I carried it everywhere with me during 1994. Why was it the Irish flag? It was just what was available, and I just wanted a soccer ball. I didn't care what it was, but it's what it was. And like from that moment on, I was very much into soccer. And I've been waiting for this team to rise up and get to that point where they can be taken serious. I don't think it ever happens. And I think that is incredibly frustrating. When we were out golfing the other day, I think you put it best. I think you said this team will forever be a team that kind of bubbles up and gets into like the top 16 of the world, but they're never really any threat. Like they're not going to do anything. They're not going to challenge anybody just because they're not that good and they won't ever be that good. And to me, that's unacceptable. Like you have to figure out a way, whether it's with developmental programs, whether it's with the system that you're running at the national level and with the under 21, the under 18 leagues. Like you have to figure out a way to develop these players better to where they can compete at this stage. Like the U.S. getting past Algeria when Landon Donovan basically slide tackled the ball into the net in extra time. Like you shouldn't be celebrating that. Like you should have beat Algeria that game. And instead you needed like everything to go right for it to happen so you could get out of the knockout round and like or get out of the opening round and get into the knockout stage. Like you shouldn't have to do those things. Yet we constantly find ourselves in these spots where you're looking up at the rest of the world and I don't think there's any answer for it. Like I think as an organization, USA Soccer has to figure out a better system and has to develop and cultivate talent better than the way they do it now. Like it needs to be a European influence in how they do things. Like go figure out what Spain does. Go figure out what Argentina does. Go figure out what just about any other country does. Figure out what Turkey does, or Egypt. Like Egypt, Egypt. Well, should have beat Argentina the other day.
I got to ask you, is it just something where sometimes it just slots the way it is? Kind of like the Arizona Cardinals are always going to be, a team that kind of maybe stinks in the National Football League. It's just kind of like, because look at it like this. When you have 50 sports to choose from,
true,
tennis, anything, football, are your best athlete. And it's also not diehard. I mean, yeah, the most diehard energy you see are the parents yelling at the officials in these kids' games. These kids are looking at the parents like, please, Timmy, will you please stop yelling at us? I'm just trying to kick the ball. You know what I mean? In England, it's crazy. It is kind of an oxymoron. Landon Donovan came out and was saying, these leagues now are all about parents yelling at their kids. In England, they're probably laughing at Landon Donovan going, that's just like a Monday at 5 a.m. You're like yelling at your kids. Like that's what we do to get them to play professional soccer. So it's just different because I think that the culture in the United States is not conducive because there's so much of a financial investment you need to make to get the kids into it. They have so many options. Whereas in Europe, it's like you wake up, you're 2 days old, and there's already an Arsenal flag in your crib. And then the song is not Rockabye Baby, it's the Arsenal theme song. You know what I mean? So it's just a little different. So I just think that if the time comes and the United States makes a run, their ceiling might be Final Four, get to the title. I just don't think you fancy ever the United States realistically getting to that point, but you can be better.
But here, how come the U.S. women are able to compete on this stage and do it so well? Like because the U.S. women do not go out there and embarrass themselves.
Exactly. But do you think
there are women's sports leagues here, and there are women's sports leagues in other nations?
I think
that they can go play in.
The best female athletes play soccer, and I think they play basketball. And I think, but in terms of men, there's so many other sports: golf,
true.
tennis.
That's true. No, I get that.
So I think the best women are able to compete against the best women in the world. Because look, I'll be honest. I think that just in terms of how the culture's set up, the United States doesn't even play in terms of prep. They play in CONCACAF. That doesn't set you up to
which
play
is
Belgium.
trash.
You
CONCACAF
can't, you
is
can't
such
play
trash.
that. Yeah, you can't play CONCACAF and then end up saying, we're going to play Messi. You know what I mean?
Dude, I
Just
was
think about
explaining
it.
that to the wife. I was like, we play like the
Yeah,
U.S. has like the worst qualifying for this.
yeah,
Like you're playing the likes of Honduras.
yes,
Like
exactly.
like I'm not even trying to shit on Honduras, but
No,
like,
right.
come
No
on, man. Like,
offense.
what are we doing?
Exactly. So your best. So I just think that we all want it, and that's good. That's a start. That's a start. And I think your young players are seeing, oh man, we just embarrassed ourselves on the national stage. We're getting Mrs. Lloyd, a former female player, coming on here and trashing our guys. So that's the first step is the heat. That's the first step of saying, hey, we're relevant. People are watching. People care. They don't want us to get embarrassed. It sparked a discussion of, wait a minute, if we put our resources into it, you can get better players. So I think that's a start. That's a very much a start. But bottom line, with soccer in America, you're just a top 15 team. And in order to get over that hump, and remember too, though the climb, Argentina, France, Spain, Belgium, these are not crumb bums. These are organizations that are like the Cowboys and the Patriots. They've been built to win. Like it's basically show up, win. Like it's no joke. Like if you don't win in European soccer, you don't win 3-4 games, and they're already talking about, hey, let's fire you. And I'm talking about the first year guy that gets a 6-year deal, $50 million a year. They're like 3 games in, you don't start scoring. They're like, we don't like this guy. That's how rabid Europeans are with their soccer because that's all they got. And they found ways to figure out that, hey, this is how you get to the highest level is it's a constant discussion. It's a constant heat that it's first or nothing. And that's why it means so much. That's why you have Messi crying almost every goal and these fans in the stands just living and dying with everything going on because that's their livelihood in sports. Whereas here, it's more about the Pistons and the Lions and locally. And then once every 4 years, people will peek in and say, all right, let's see if we can slap USA on a jersey and see if they can win. Now, I do think there will be more involvement and more paying attention to if the manager of the team is going to stay on or does he go back to a club team? Does he get his system in place? Do they get better athletes? But let's just start with brooming out the old. Bye-bye Pulisic, your era is over. And let's invest in the young athletes, get players that actually, I'm sorry, and this is the way it's got to be. I'm sorry, Mr. Timmy. You ain't playing in Miami in your soccer career. We need you to go to Manchester City. We need you to go to Arsenal. If you play in any league lower than the Spanish league, the English league, at best, okay, we'll slum it in the German league. If you don't play in Europe, you can't play for America. That's where the competition is. You can't play in the MLS. I'm sorry. It's just you play in the MLS. That is where you go down from the American team to MLS, and that's it. It's like Pulisic now, go in the MLS and stay there forever. That's your punishment. I'm sorry. That's the way it's got to be. All the Americans have to find themselves in Europe because that's where the heat is the hottest. That's where every week it's where you're getting spit on and you show up and everybody knows your number and calls you out by your name and makes fun of your mom and dad and your heritage. So that's what you got to do. You got to start by raising the bar, raising the expectation, and getting all the American players to play meaningful soccer. And that's what will get them to the next level. We'll see if they ever get to that point, but it's very fascinating. But it's been cool to see the games now moving forward, and next week we'll start to take a look at who can win the World Cup. Now, turning our attention to the Detroit Pistons, cuz I'm very fascinated because Trajan Langdon is kind of systematically moving the pawns in the chessboard there, and I'm curious, what does it mean? Because there's two sides to this, and I'm very much in limbo as to what my expectations are. Is Trajan Langdon moving the pieces around the chessboard to get a Trey Murphy, Kevin Durant? Or is he just freeing up money to pay his own guy in Jalen Duren $35 million? Because if it goes the other way, I'm going to be very devastatingly sad, like a bad drive, that where the ball goes 45 yards to the right. Or is it, hey, getting a secondary scorer and actually getting the final basically cherry on top of a beautiful sundae where it's got the right whipped cream, the nice sugary ice cream, vanilla bean ice cream, and it's just a little cherry on top with the chocolate glaze that will make the offseason. I don't know what to think because I do think they actually, aren't maybe that much better than people think. You got rid of Isaiah Stewart, defensive prowess. You got rid of Uncle T, who was a regular season scorer. You added more 3-point shooting, but I don't think you're significantly better. You probably are in line with what you need to do in the playoffs. But do we finally get the cherry on top of this Sunday? Or is it final move? Jalen Duren signs a 5-year average annual value, $35 million, and we stop. I don't know, because it has the feel of a big name coming, but I can't guarantee it. What say you? How are you viewing the moves that Trajan Langdon has been making?
I think it's a fantastic question to pose because they've been very active. They've been incredibly active. They have essentially flipped this entire roster, and I don't know if you're any better. Like I feel like on paper this team is marginally better than what they were last year, and I think this team's going to look much different than it did last year. I think you've got more shooting on this team, which is kind of what killed you in the playoffs. But all that being said, I don't think you're better in any area, any specific way. Like to me, this kind of feels like it's almost like the Scott Harris approach, right? Where, hey, we're going to have the same guys, but it's going to be a different team type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you haven't really moved the bar at all. And yes, it was a good team last year, but they beat up on a bad East. And you've seen what happened when they really had to play teams that could kind of get their number. Like it took everything you needed to get past Orlando, and then you ended up getting popped by a Cavs team that got murdered by the Knicks. So like you really weren't a number 1 seed. But all that being said, they've been incredibly active, and they've moved some money around, and they've freed up some space underneath the cap, and they've got stuff going on. And I think the words that are haunting me are what Trajan Langdon has said about what he wants to do with Jalen Duren. Like he wants to keep Jalen Duren. He views Jalen Duren as part of the core, probably the number 2 on this team, and he wanted him to go out and figure out what he could make, and then he essentially has said, we'll match whatever offer comes our way. The thing that's been weird is it's been about a week now, maybe 10 days. Jalen Duren hasn't really brought back an offer. Doesn't really sound like anybody's too into whatever Jalen Duren's bringing to the table. So I don't know what was essentially offered at the first meeting when these two sat down to talk. I don't know if it was $25-30 million a year that Duren was like, no, I'm going to bet on myself. But it seems as though Trajan Langdon has dug in and he's holding his line. The hope is that it is something along the lines of $25 million. So you can take the rest of that cap space that you freed up, and you can take some of these draft picks that you've acquired, and you could package them up, maybe throw in an additional player, and go out there and get a guy like Trey Murphy. If it's Kevin Durant, I might lose my mind. I feel like Kevin Durant is just a straight shot of carcinogens into your bloodstream, and he is just cancer that will just ruin your organization. I don't feel like this organization, as good as Cade is, I don't know if this organization or if Cade is even as strong of an individual to kind of keep Durant in check. Like when Durant kind of got a little pissy and a little bit weird when he was playing with Golden State, that was Steph Curry's team, and Draymond was there to back up Steph, and so like Durant never really kind of got too free from kind of towing the line and staying in bounds. When he went to Brooklyn, he was kind of a pissy crybaby. He's in Houston now, and it sounds like he's moving on from another team. So if it's Durant, I think I might go and scream as loud as I can from the Renaissance Center. If you can go out and get Trey Murphy, though, like I said, and look, the reports for Trey Murphy for the trade, what is being requested by the Pelicans is they want multiple first round picks, and they would possibly like a player back. Well, here's the deal. I feel like the Pistons have all of that. You've got 3 first round picks that you can offer. The report was that they wanted at least 2, and you can throw in, I don't care, throw in a Ron Holland. You just traded for Gary Harris. I don't know if Gary Harris is going to be any good on this team. I don't even know if Gary Harris is any good in the league. I just feel like he's kind of a guy. Throw Gary Harris in. Throw Taurean Prince in. You just traded for him as well from the Bucks. You've got guys that you can package up with draft picks to go and get this guy who is a legit number 2. And if you go and you're able to bring him in, I don't necessarily have a problem if you end up keeping Jalen Duren and it's for a reasonable contract, like 25 mil, under 30 mil. I'm okay with that. I could then stomach that. But at this point, I don't want Duren here. I don't need him. He doesn't add anything to this team. Like, dude, you had trouble rebounding in the playoffs. Like, that's just effort. Go get it. That's all you got to do is just go get the ball. So I feel like what you've got going on with Trajan Langdon is he is moving a lot of pawns around on the chessboard. And it seems like there's another big shoe that is going to drop. Is it going to be a Jalen Duren contract, like you said, for like 35 mil? I sure as hell hope not. I am pushing all in, and I am putting my heart in a basket here, and I am hoping that he's moving all this stuff around so he can go out, trade for a guy like Trey Murphy, and then on the back end of all of it, they can iron out some deal for Jalen Duren. Maybe it's a 3-year deal where it's like $85 million. You know what I'm saying? So like you're under 30, you got in 2 years time, we can renegotiate. If you've worked at your game, you can actually shoot the basketball and you don't become incredibly small and flaccid in the playoffs. We can re-sign you and extend you and get you what you're looking for. But you need to go out. You've done nothing to add that viable number 2 to Cade. You know what I'm saying? It feels like everything you've done has been essentially a lateral move, and you've just kind of changed the style of basketball you're going to play. Instead of being a team that's going to try to work it inside and really bang on you and beat you up a little bit, it really feels like this team is now taking more of an approach to shoot the basketball. Fantastic. I say I tip my hat to you because that's what wins in the NBA right now. You need to be able to do that, but you need to have another guy who can help out Cade because you've got nobody right now. And the guy who can help out Cade is not Jalen Duren. He's a piece, but he's not the number 2. So I need Trajan Langdon to go out there and make this trade for Trey Murphy.
Make the deal, and that's the biggest thing is that who's going to be the complement. So it seems like he's done enough to get the role players at least different, and you would give him the trust that he knows guys that can shoot. And let's see if the opportunity's there to. And remember too that I understand that people are like, well, how much better did they actually get in terms of 3-point shooting? Because a lot of the guys that they got do have 40% shooting, but they shoot 3 threes a game. So let's see if you get guys.
The volume's not there, right?
Right.
This is the thing too, right? So you look at what Boston ended up doing, right? So they end up making a trade with the 76ers and they give up Jaylen Brown. Like, you could have added Jaylen Brown to this team and instantly you are a contender. And the 76ers, I think they only gave up like 2 first-round draft picks and they gave up a bag of basketballs. Like, why weren't you involved in that? Why weren't you one of the teams that were there? Like, they were obviously looking to get rid of him. They were obviously looking to move on from him, and they ended up trading him to a heated rival. Like, you could have got in on that deal and instantly made your team that much better. So, like, I feel like Trajan's got to be war chesting for something, and that something has to be Trey Murphy.
I hope. But again, does he play enough defense to help you in the postseason? Because you got to remember, Cleveland makes moves. Now the Knicks are championship contenders. Orlando, if they can stay healthy. So it's going to take some time to be able to do this. And again, it's got to be the right fit. It's got to be the right guy. If you're going to especially give up multiple first rounders, this is the move. This could be the sentinel move. And that's good that we're talking about it in the fact of put your decision making, put everything that you know about the league, and let's go get Cade the compliment. And if he grows, now you have a chance to make this happen. But if you make the mistake, you could be looking at a long time before the team is relevant in regards to conversations about winning it all. Because remember, San Antonio has the guy, and he's only going to get better, and he's only going to get hungrier. He got activated, he got a taste, and that's the one thing that you can get is you get the experience and you get that taste. So we shall see. Before we get out of here, cuz I got to ask you, are the Tigers reeling you back in only for the fact that they play in a really crappy American League. I mean, literally, the athletics are horrible, and you just get to stay around by default. I look at it from my perspective of like, hey, it's fool's gold. Don't get fooled by, wow, they can get 86 wins in the American League. That's just like basically the playing in the MLS to bring it full circle. The American League is the MLS of the world. And when you play good teams, you've lost series. Obviously, it's good to beat the Astros and the Rangers, and the Yankees series was a little bit eye-opening in that, hey, Tigers are flexing a little bit, but in the end, I am willing to take short-term loss and a little bit of a sting to the groin area. You gotta trade Scooble. Just do it. Make this baseball team better. And it could be one of those things where it's a perceived loss, but if you can get a pitcher and a hitter, you might be able to withstand it even in the American League. You might get lucky by dealing, and you just got to find a way to get a contributor at starter, a contributing starting pitcher, a hitter, and a prospect. If you can get just 3 players, find any 3 players across the entire Major League Baseball. If you can do that, I think Scott Harris can win. But I just think it would be a disaster if you fall for this idea that let's just ride it out with Scooble. Because what's going to happen is everybody's going to tell you, fine, you back your way into the wild card, you win our series, and then you're going to get blown out by the Yankees in the postseason. You're going to get blown out by another top team. So don't fall for this notion that, oh, in the regular season we're a good team with a bad record. Look, championship or bust. Are you contending? Is your stock high to win a World Series title? No, it's horrible. So back the train up and push forward. 2 steps forward could get you 5 steps up. 2 steps, 3 steps backwards could get you 4 or 5 steps ahead next year. So are you falling for the fool's gold, or what are you thinking about the Tigers at this stage after some series wins?
Hell no. Look, trade Scooble. I would probably try to work out an extension with Casey Mize. Keep him for your starting rotation and try to use him as a piece to build with and build around. This is the thing. It was a month. It was about 5 weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. We were having this conversation where like the Tigers have to basically flip the script, and they need to have a June like they had a May, but in the opposite, right? They needed to go on this tear and just win all these games. You check the standings, and you check the win column. At that time, I think they were like 12 or 13 games out of being 500. They're still 9 games out of being 500. Like, you didn't do enough in the last month. And like the trade deadline's coming up. You've got the All-Star break here around the corner. Like, you've not done enough. You're not going to be a team that's going to be contending for anything. And like, if you do get into the playoffs, what does it cost you, right? Like, so if you don't trade Scooble, you end up losing him for nothing. You get into the playoffs and you're outed in the wild card game. So what did you actually win? What did you actually do? If anything, you set your organization back further. Like, you need to trade Scooble. You need to really look up and down this roster and find the pieces that you can move on from, and then get some young talents in here and really help build this thing back up. Like, do I want to lose Scooble? No, absolutely not. But he doesn't want to sign here. And we're heading towards a lockout. So why would I not move on from arguably the biggest trade commodity I have and the biggest chip going into the trade deadline across all of Major League Baseball? Why would I not utilize this token, cash this in, and then get multiple pieces back that are going to help set me up, probably not for next year, but the year after that? Why would I not do that? To me, if Scott Harris sits on his hands and does not trade Scooble, we have to have a very, very serious conversation about what this Detroit Tiger organization is doing and what Scott Harris is doing. And maybe it might just be time to move on from the Scott Harris effect, the Scott Harris project, the Scott Harris experiment, because, hey, it's been cool that you've essentially been able to backdoor your way into the playoffs the last 2 years. And like, if you go back and you look at the last 2 seasons, they've been absolutely crazy seasons, like nuts, right? The 2 years ago, it was essentially a Disney movie. Like, you end up going to the trade deadline, you're a seller, and you're like, hey, we're like 15 games out of out of the playoffs, and somehow you just go on this torrid pace and start winning all these games, and you're able to find yourself in the playoffs, and you look credible when you get there. Fantastic. You then fast forward to last season, and you basically continued that pace early on, and then all of a sudden it just fell apart at the back end of the year. You end up backdooring your way into the playoffs, and you made 0 moves to add any bats at the trade deadline, and you end up falling flat on your face against the Mariners. Now you go into this year, and you're like the worst part of both of those last 2 seasons. Like you're just not good. And it was a lot of smoke and mirrors the previous 2 years, and now you're at the point where you're paying the dividends for it. Like, this is what you are. You're not a good baseball team. Cash that chip in. Get some pieces here, retool this. I'm not saying rebuild it, retool this with all that you get back in that trade. If Scott Harris does not pull the trigger on this, dude,
yeah,
there are bigger issues.
Yeah, you got to. You cannot build a baseball team where you take a chance on a 3-month stint where you're not going to win it all. There is nobody on earth with a realistic sports brain in Detroit that thinks that this offense is good enough. Maybe you can make a run, magical run, but you're not good enough. And nobody wants a short-term 3-month tease when you could definitely get 3-4 play. That's how you win. You take your best commodity, you let somebody else pay him in his 30s, and you get young players and prospects that hopefully can potentially help you win down the road and turn into something. But again, that's the scary part because realistically, as we're talking before we hop out of here, there may be a situation where I know a lot of people are always looking for win-win. This might just be that scenario where realistically we have to say it could be lose-lose, where you make the trade, you think you get the prospects, but prospects are always a maybe. And the Tigers are like, well, we know what we got in Skubal. He's a marketing guy. You can write out the money and figure it out later. And then you could say, you know what, when he leaves, then everybody's just going to hate on Skubal. If you trade Skubal and you whiff on the prospects where the elevated risk is very high anyway, now you put yourself in the crosshairs. So I do think there is a little bit of that survivalistic mindset where if you and I were golfing and we were the executive of the Tigers, we would say, I would say to you, listen, Adam, if we make this move and we're wrong, everyone's going to hate us. If we just, get 2 weeks of hate, fine. But when Skubal signs somewhere else for $400 million, everyone in Detroit's going to hate him. And they're not really going to hate us as much. And so you say, you know what, let's just ride it out. Maybe we can get hot a little bit. Maybe we add a player and quiet everybody down. Add a right-handed bat that everybody's like, ooh, and all the slappies will be like, good for Scott. And so that's where I kind of have to say, this could be a lose-lose scenario, and that's what happens when you have prospects in Major League Baseball and you haven't done enough on your own squad to develop who you got. So we'll see. We'll see, because there's already been a little bit of noise with Cora leaving, philosophical differences. But hell, they're winning games. It's at least interesting. They haven't totally lost the fans. And going into the All-Star break, there are, obviously the storyline of McGonigal having a tremendous rookie season, Riley Green and Dylan Dingler doing their thing. So they're still a team to watch. But this is a sentinel moment. How do they handle Skubal? And I think that what's good is we're finally nearing the point where we're going to get a conclusive look at what's going to happen. Okay, we've been talking about it for damn near 2 years. And it's like, holy cow, Skubal. Can't you see? Doesn't want to be here in the Motor City D. So let's go. Trade him out. Get some prospects, and let's figure out how to make this baseball team a little bit better moving forward. So let's see if Scott Harris got the chops to actually look across the league and utilize pro player personnel staffs to find out players that can come in. Because, look, remember, too, cuz Justin Verlander, that laughable haul. Nick Castellanos, laughable haul, where Alavila's like, yeah, there really hasn't been a market for him. Nobody's calling. You're like, just lie. Tell everybody 90 people are calling. Oh my God! And you realize that the teardown of the Tigers was horrible, in that Alavila was decent at looking at talent in the draft, but in terms of pro player personnel and trade deadlines and free agents, it just didn't end up working out. So we shall see. Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you stay engaged, stay involved in Detroit sports. All the good stuff happens. It's a fun time even in the summer months. We'll follow along with the Tigers, and we're still following along with the Red Wings and what's going on and everything going on in the world of Detroit sports. Thanks, everybody. Again, hit the like button, subscribe, Anywhere you listen to your favorite audio content, you can find us pretty easily. Thanks, everybody. I can't wait for next week when we fire it up again on the next episode of Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.